I want to talk briefly about some tips and tricks for when you're working with a long tail cast on and you're casting on stitches and suddenly you realize you're going to run out of your tail before you're finished casting on stitches. It's incredibly frustrating, especially if you're casting on, 80 plus stitches. I've had cast-ons for blankets that involve 200 stitches, and running out of tail when you're at 180 is incredibly aggravating. So this won't, in every circumstance, always fix it, but it's always worth a shot before ripping everything out and starting over. So say I need to cast on 20 stitches, and this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 so far, and I'm starting to worry that I'm running out of thread. And in fact, if I go ahead and try to cast on 10 more, what I'm going to find is that I don't quite have enough thread left on my cast on to have a tail long enough to weave in, and I don't have enough stitches. Let's see how many I got. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I only got 16. I can maybe squeeze one more, 17, but now I'm really getting down to a very short tail, not long enough for weaving in, and I still need 3 more stitches. So one of the things that I do is I will go back so many stitches. In this case, I'm going to pull out the 7 I just tried to cast on. And what you can do is you can swap the threads that are coming from the bottom of your needle that you're using for the back and the front of your cast on. And this will buy you a little more yardage on your yarn. It will vary depending on the thickness of yarn and the size of your needle. If you're using bulkier yarn on smaller needles, you're not going to get as much of a difference as if you're doing something, say, in a sock weight yarn on a bigger needle. You'll see a bigger, more dramatic difference. And the reason is that when you're casting on this way, the thread in the back over your index finger is the thread that makes the loop on your needle, the stitch on your needle. So if you watch this back thread, as I do my cast on, it becomes this stitch on top. So it uses up that much thread, and then if you look at my thread along my thumb as I'm pulling it tight, it shrinks down quite a bit more and cinches down and just becomes kind of this twist along the bottom of our cast on here. So if you need to get a little more out of your small short tail, just twist these so that your tail is now in front and your working yarn is in the back. This will create a little bit of a twist and you'll be able to see it in the edge of your cast on. I personally don't think it's too noticeable, but it might not be for everyone. But if you do this, then what will happen is you'll use up that tail more slowly and you'll be able to get more stitches out of your cast on tail. So I'm going to go ahead and finish casting these on and see how many I can get before it just becomes unmanageable. Okay, about there. This is about the shortest length of tail I like leaving. Let's see how many stitches I've got now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. I got 2 more whole stitches. I've still got a nice tail. I can probably manage to get to that 20 that I needed for my cast on for this particular project. I've still got a tail that I think I can make work. And then as you can see here, there's that little twist and bump right there where you've swapped your stitches, or excuse me, your threads. Right there. It is, again, in my opinion, not that noticeable. If you are a perfectionist, it might bother you, and that's totally fine. This just hopefully might help save you from having to rip out your entire 200 stitches to start again. Another thing you can do is when starting, say you have 300 stitches or something insane to cast on, what you can do is you can take both strands of your working yarn so that you've got two ends attached to your ball and no tail necessarily. Make a slip knot either individually, or I just do it with both of them at once. You can stick that on your needle. You've got 2 stitches for the price of 1 there. Now you'll have 2 extra ends to weave in, so instead of having just 1 end at the beginning of your project, you'll end up with 3, because what you'll do is you'll start with these 2 slip knots. They each have a tail, but now you have unlimited tail because both of your ends are attached to your working yarn. You can cast on as many stitches as you need. You're never going to run out of thread. And say we get to 300 stitches, you know, forever down here, you just pick one of these threads, whichever one you don't want to be pulling from on your ball or your skein, snip it. Now that's where you get your 3rd end. So it kind of gains you 2 ends to weave in, but I've found this to be very useful when casting on a large number of stitches, just to be confident that I'm not going to have to go back and rip everything out and start over again. So those are just some little tips and tricks that I found helpful, and hopefully you'll find them helpful too.